a mid-level production coordinator. My history is I started off in QA at Gameloft in Auckland. I worked there for a year before I transferred to become an assistant producer at Gameloft. And then Gameloft shut down. I left the games industry for a few years, and then ended up helping with a game shop as a QA tester a few years ago. And then, found an opportunity at Rocketworks up in Auckland, which I'm really grateful for, really comfortable there, really excited for Icarus and the launch of that and how that's going to go. I'm going to talk about a few just production processes that are very common in game development. You've probably heard of most of them if you work in the industry. I'll mention a lot of the kind of common tools, but a lot of people out there might not know of these, and a lot of people remix these in different ways depending on their team's situation. If you're fully remote, you might do things a bit different. So I think it's good to just talk about it, make it real clear, and just run you guys through some processes. So the 5 things I'll be talking about today: what daily stand-ups are, backlog prioritization, sprint planning, retrospectives, and one-on-ones. So I'll talk about what they are and how you do them, and why they're important, and why I think I wanted to speak about them today. So, first one, I have a bunch of quotes through this. Hope is not a strategy. This is one thing that gets echoed a lot. Being a producer, if you find yourself relying on hope that things will work itself out, that's usually the time that you need to kind of step in as a producer or someone with a planning passion to just try and have the least amount of hope as possible. So get as many things written down, things like that. And that's what I'm really passionate about, that I hope to bring to the teams that I work on, is relying less and less on hope and more on proper strategy. Cool, so daily stand-ups. How do you do them? So every morning, they don't have to be in the morning, they could be at the end of the day as well. I've seen both. I haven't seen any in the middle of the day, but I like the mornings the best. What you do is you ask your team what they did yesterday, what you're doing today, and if there's anything blocking you. What this does, so you can do this on Discord, Slack with just bullet points, or you can do it in person. They all work. It's meant to be quick, easy, effortless, and just something that the team can get used to doing. The reason why stand-ups are important is just because it's fast. It gets the team, their brain working first thing in the morning. It builds a good habit of getting your team to communicate what tasks they're working on, what state of the project or the feature that they're working on, what state they're in, and just gets them to communicate it. I think communication is really important for good processes, and a few of the processes I'll talk about are about emotional and kind of soft skills and things to nurture those kind of conversations, which it's not all about just having a talented developer and then being efficient. It's about how they communicate and work together with a team. Stand-ups, that's the first one. Trust is earned when actions meet words. So trust, working in production, I think trust is a really important thing. The moment you have your team's trust and they have trust in you, you can really just, do some really incredible, the amount of efficiency that you can get in the project is really powerful when you have that kind of symbiotic relationship where you don't need to over communicate as much. You're kind of on the same page. So building trust and finding ways to build trust amongst your team, I think, is really important and something to keep note of. Second thing, backlog prioritization. So how do you do it? You get a list of all your tasks, tickets, bugs. You can maybe tackle just your bugs or just your tasks, but you want to get a big list. Things that are too, things that make the project feel overwhelming. You want to get them all in one place. And what you do is, usually when you create them, most of the time they're at the medium priority. And what you want to do is move them and make a decision whether they go to high priority or low priority. And it's quite hard at times. You might decide to leave some in medium if they do really sit in there. But for most of them, you should be able to make them high or low. Another process that we've used at Rocketworks is the Moscow method, which Dean Hall really likes. I think because it relates to the army, and he loves anything to do with the army. So this is a great process to throw in there. It stands for must, should, could, and won't, and it's just another way of helping define tickets to know where they sit in the project. This can be done on Jira, Trello, any kind of system with cards, or even just an Excel sheet, and just kind of going through them and giving them 1, 2, or 3. Make it as simple as possible. So yeah, why they're important. It makes the important issues and the critical issues float to the top. It's easy to get bogged down and overwhelmed, and you forget issues that came up a few weeks ago, and this just kind of helps it float to the top. I think it gives a clear view of what you want the team to be focusing on now, so that in a few weeks' time there's a more stable build, and you can kind of start to. There's always critical issues that come up, but you can, just kind of work through the challenging issues, which makes it easier to handle. One thing I mentioned is just it helps with the overwhelming feeling that comes with game development when you feel like there's no end in sight and the only way through is to crash and burn. A common fact is that every project I've worked on, there's always hundreds of bugs that you launch with that are in the backlog that you don't touch, and it feels very overwhelming, and it can kind of make you feel defeated. But if you prioritize properly and you get all the critical issues out of the way, and you just kind of accept that there's low-hanging fruit down there that you can get to, then it makes you feel fulfilled when you do launch your project, knowing that it is mostly stable. Plans are nothing, plans are everything. I like these quotes just because it makes you think about things differently. At the same, I don't think every project needs a producer. The moment you have multiple people, I'd say more than 10 people in a team, communication does become really important. But every team's different, and you can't just throw any producer into a new team and they'll have all the solutions. It's an ongoing process, so that's why I like thinking that plans and processes that you put in place are really important and valuable, but you should also kind of forget them as quickly as you implement them, because the team's constantly changing, the games industry is constantly changing, and there's no hard, easy rule for how to have an efficient team. Third one, sprint planning. So, how do you do it? You get the team together in one space, you allocate tasks for 2 weeks, and you try and get scopes for how long people will take to get certain tasks done. So you get the list of tasks. It could be what's in the backlog, or it could be certain features that you want to deliver in a certain amount of time, and you allocate those amongst the team. You can do this in Jira, Confluence, which is what Jira communicates really well with in terms of documentation. Excel, just anything, sticky notes as well. A lot of people like to have a physical board where they're moving tasks to different developers. 2 weeks is a good chunk of time as well, because it's close enough in the future that you can be agile and in 2 weeks' time pivot, but it's also long enough that the producer doesn't have to have a handle every day on everything in the project. You can kind of have some breathing room. So why it's important, it's agile. 2 weeks is kind of the standard. A lot of teams work in maybe 1 month. I think a week you can do, but it gets very exhausting, and there's a lot of, you just need to really be on top of the new issues coming in. Maybe teams that have already launched and they're maybe just doing regular updates or fast iteration, that would probably be the best for them. It allows focused work. I think this is really interesting. If you give a developer a task that they have to get done in the next week, and you give them 2 weeks to do it, over that week they'll really make sure that they implement it properly, the way they want, and they have time to kind of feel comfortable with that system and developing it, without having them have to do it as fast as possible and then move it out the way. They can kind of get familiar with it, which I think is really important for developers to feel comfortable and passionate about what they're doing. And it improves communication. So you get a chance in that meeting to ask I say developers. When I say developers, I mean the whole team. So the art department, the programmers, the animators, whichever team you're trying to plan for. It helps communication because everyone can raise, if there's a certain feature that they are really passionate about, or that they have more experience in, you can kind of sort it out in this meeting. And I think it's really important to do these rather than just kind of allocating them as a producer without having that discussion with the team, because I think there's some really interesting solutions you can find once everyone's in a room. It's not the game that we end up caring about, but the relationships we made along the way. So this is me kind of transitioning the talk now into more of like a soft skill emotional approach, which I think is really important, especially game development having a stigma of burnout and things like that. I'm really passionate about having a team that are happy and comfortable, that work hard and might work late some nights when they feel really comfortable, and not that they feel forced, and not that they feel burnt out at the end of it. And that's something I'm discovering during my career is into becoming a producer, and how to work that. But what I found is caring about the person is what where those solutions are, and not kind of putting the project over the people in the team. All right, so fourth one, retrospectives, also known as like retros. These are done all the time for so many different things. What you do is you get the team together, or the little segment of the team that you want to talk about a certain feature, the project as a whole, or the company as a whole. What you do is you create 3 columns, usually on a whiteboard, a happy, confused, and sad column. And what you do is you ask your team to add different items. It could be things that have happened recently, depending on what the kind of overarching topic is. For example, it could be about, you've just launched a game. How has everyone felt about how the launch went? And it's all about, it's like a post-mortem. You find out what worked, what didn't, where people's concerns are. A lot of teams do this on a monthly basis, just consistently, or bi-weekly even, just to get a gauge of where the team's kind of standing. Game development's constantly evolving, and a few months later of any project, you're working on a completely different set of features and a completely different area of the game. So there's always things to like talk about. You can use a whiteboard. Jamboard is, I think, Google's virtual whiteboard, or I think Zoom now has a keyboard. You can do it on all those things, anything where you can just like draw 3 columns and have people add to it. What I like about it is that it creates a safe space, and it really builds kind of trust and camaraderie between your team. It lets things come out that they might not feel comfortable saying to other people in the office, and I think that is really important when you're building that trust with your team, to have these kind of moments where you can bond, share real like big frustrations that you have with the project, or things that you're really happy about, and I always enjoy retros because you always learn a bit more about someone else, or you always kind of, it can get heated once you kind of let things you let people argue with each other and things like that. I think that's a really healthy thing to have. And it also gives you a chance as the producer or product manager to align direction, and to just make sure that concerns that people felt, you can like direct everyone in the same direction and under the same vision, so that everyone's on the same page. And I think being on the same page is really important. And all these processes, they kind of start with bringing people together in one place. And I think that's all what it's about, is about making sure everyone's on the same page, on the same team. They feel close to each other, like they understand what's happening. And yeah, retros are a great way to just, it's very broad and open. Anyone can mention anything. So, another quote: "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." I think if a team is happy, it doesn't matter if the game is a huge success or not. It might be cool in the moment, to be trending, to be making a lot of money or whatever. But if you want a team that's sustained and lasts a long time and grows together, then it's focusing on what would make you happy and what would make the team happy, rather than what would make the team successful. All right, last one. So, how do you do one-on-ones? What you do is you find a time to meet with every individual person in the team. You find like a space that's private, alone, and what you do is you just check in and just ask them how they're feeling. The idea is that it's a real casual meeting. You're just checking in with them. There's no expectation. There's no you're not talking about getting a raise or like any big change. And I think these are really important, just to you break down walls that your team might build when the only communication they have from like the leads of the company are when there are big changes. And I think having a producer that's constantly checking in with their team one-on-one just builds that trust again. makes them open up about things that might be going on in their life. So yeah, why it's important is that, like I said, creates a safe space. Lets them talk about things not only in their personal life, but in the workplace, if they have other team members that they might not get along with, or even if it's a big enough company, there might be different departments or different projects entirely that you realize they might be a better fit on. And I think finding those moments and taking action and trying to reposition them into another team is hugely beneficial for them in their career, and will reflect really well on on your team, knowing that like healthy changes like that can happen throughout a project. I've seen things like that happen at Rocketworks, and it's awesome how you get the opportunity to talk about things that you are interested in outside of work hours, and that might make its way into your day-to-day at work, which I think for anyone's career that's really awesome. And one-on-ones are a great time, especially if you trust your leads and your producer to talk about those things, to mention them without any big amount of pressure on the line. So yeah, there's only one constant in game development, and change. That's change. So the reason I say that, like I said at the very beginning, people might take these processes and remix them in different ways. I've seen people use like Slack emojis to communicate certain things, and I find that real awesome, like different creative ways of using the tools that people use on a daily basis to communicate process. And so I just, I won't have all the answers, but just know that there's a million different ways you can get to the end goal. And that's what I'm really excited and passionate about, is finding new ways of getting the team to work together, to grow, to be more efficient, and communicate better. And yeah, so just going over the 5 again: daily stand-ups, backlog, prioritization, sprint planning, retros, and one-on-ones. So thanks for listening. I hope that was kind of insightful. A lot of these you'll be able to research online and get more information about. They might say things slightly differently to how I've said them, and it's constantly changing, and there'll probably be new like agile type processes like this that come about. I also posted the whole like breakdown of the slides on Twitter at Cal's Content, if you want to like see this written down and recapped really well. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys coming along and giving me a chance to do a quick 15-minute talk and just talk about something that I'm passionate about. So yeah.